first. Oh wait, now we live. Okay, Hotep, a BB for Hodier, and race first to all of our family joining us tonight on the school at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we're always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point.
Let's get it.
So Baba is currently en route, so we're gonna start some things off and kick some things off tonight. Before we get started, as always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tune in because as we have our discussions, we'd love to have you a part of it. So tonight, my dear brother minister wanted to introduce a topic. Go ahead, Baba. What's that topic that we talking about?
Hotep people, how y'all doing? The topic is basically, are we at war? You know, and really looking at all the different facets that explain that and in detail with that. Because some of our people are on the fence about, are we really at war, right? And what does that really look like? So I want to go ahead and open up the table to, my comrades, and then we just gonna go from there.
Okay. Are we at war? I want to hear sister actually answer that one because I feel as though the brothers, most of the time we end up hearing that the answer to that is usually a brother that end up answering that. So I just want to know from some of my sisters, what's the perception of it, sister?
First to my good sis over there.
Okay, let's get into it. So when we talk about being at war, being warred upon, it's a couple of things that I think about, right? So I think about let's just look at the food, you know. The FDA approves the food. You got meat that's been created in a lab that's being approved and saying that we could eat this. So when we ask ourselves, are we being warred upon? Food, growing your own food is now a revolutionary act. Who would have ever thought that? So that's one small example that's showing, hey, we being warred upon. When you look at our children in these educational welfare institutions, and I say welfare because any support you're getting from this government is welfare, right? So when you send your children off to public schools, and those some of us, that's what we got to do because we out there working a mule, working a job. When you think about these concepts of no child left behind, and they just passing children to the 8th and 9th grade and barely can read on a 1st and 2nd grade level, and you ask me, are we being warred upon? Yes, we being warred upon. Our children are working through this system and don't know how to read or write, don't know how to count. We being warred upon. But yet they can tell you all of the lyrics to Cardi B's song and Megan Thee Stallion. We being warred upon. So that's a little snippet, but we gonna get into it tonight.
Real quick, right? Just as some pushback, because you talking about food and education, you ain't say nothing about no bombs dropping though. Like if we gonna say war, that's some strong words. I'm living all right. I got 4 walls. I don't have to hide. Out in no bunker nowhere. Would you really say that is war?
It's war. So I can think back, during our process in PLM, we have to read books, right? So we read some books by Franz Fanon, and we read a book by what's my brother from Cuba? Help me out. Che Guevara, right? So they talked about different aspects of what it's like to be warred upon, what's going on with the people, and how certain classes of people are being able to move through society with less issues, less problems, right? And a lot of times we think war or violence against us has to be a physical punch. No, we are taught that violence is the act of giving us poison in the food that we eat. Violence is not educating our children. Violence is the Black man in mass incarceration. That is a war upon us. Let's be very clear. Some people think that the Ma'afa is a situation that happened for a period of time. Remember, Ani teaches us this Ma'afa is ongoing. You see, the struggle for liberation is ongoing. This fight is ongoing. The revolution is not at a place where it's some destination. We are experiencing it right now. So we got to fight back. We got to come from a position where we're not reacting to something that's being done to us. Please believe we are at war. Please believe that violence upon us is not just a physical brute force. No, violence is all of these things, the seen and the unseen. That's what violence is. But let me not take too much time, That's just a little bit. Don't get me fired up.
It's good. It's good. The fire is definitely good because I remember, as we were going through our process reading The Wretched of the Earth and talking about that psychological aspect, right? Being able to look at what does it look like for war to be covert? What does it look like for war to happen around you on the day-to-day, but not look like war? Like when we hear war, our minds automatically go to a certain scene, right? But what we're living day to day, like we're on a battlefield, like right here where we live. And it's because we're being warred upon in that very subtle, very quiet way, in a way that doesn't make you question, in a way that you almost feel like this is a sense of normalcy, but it's not.
A false sense of normalcy. And I'll add to that. And I know the brother's going to jump in, but when you think about the fried chicken spots, the churches, and the liquor stores, they just about on every corner. When we went to China before, and we've gone to Ghana, we've gone to Togo, we've gone to other countries around the world, we don't see that. We don't see an influx of liquor stores and fried chicken spots and churches or foreign religious institutions on every corner in the hood. Not even on. When you talk about being a warred upon, you go down the corner, you see they got plexiglass. You want me to buy food and diapers and Pampers from your market, and you got a bulletproof glass up in front of me. And let some of my students used to say some of these agents wouldn't even give them their change back. You think we not being warred upon? You don't even respect me. You come in my community, my neighborhood, sell goods, triple the price. We living in food deserts. You block busting, gentrification. That's us being warred upon. And I will dare to say that ain't light. They got it down to a science. You go to Home Depot, they got gentrification gray as a paint color. You can't tell me we being warred upon.
Okay, so I'm gonna chime in.
Let's get it.
When I think about war, I look at the reality of how society is designed and how it's made up. My son, before he was born, I fought for the need for rights programs for Black boys who grow up in inner city because of the reality of them being born into broken homes. And I asked myself the question, like, why is our communities the way they are? Why is society the way it is? And we can go back in time. We can head back to the plantation. We can head back to how our families were divided up on the plantation. We can look at how when they brought about the so-called Emancipation Proclamation to, so-called quote on free our people, how they didn't provide them with anything. So they had to deal with the bare minimum. But I also can go at, to when Black families were thriving in America, right? But then they had soldiers that came back home from war, and what did they do? They took those jobs from them Black fathers. And a lot of those fathers that enlisted in the war, they came home with all kinds of conditions and was no love, no support given. Then I also can see about the crack epidemic. Government putting drugs in our communities, right? To be able to divide our people. Because there were a lot of conscious organizations that were uprising to fight against the injustice and the police brutality that was going on in those communities. That's war. That's war. Right now, I work for an organization where as though that the millions of dollars that we get is for the work that is done to try to rebuild and restructure the damage that has been done by America to people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get little sprinkles of Europeans in and out of the program. I mean, but 90%, 95%, 98% is us that is inside of these. And it takes me back to me even saying here that the Revolutionary Act is creating a program for my child that's not even born yet so he can have a fighting chance.
That's right.
I'm at war. I'm at war when I got to be super extremely selective, I mean, in my selection of the woman that I'm going to be with.
That's right.
You know, because I don't want a broken home. You know, I don't want to be raising my child, I mean, from house to house. You know, so I got sisters walking to me trying to talk to me. I'm looking like, where your mind at? Where your heart at? Where your spirit at? In a community that is based in its culture and it isn't broken, you don't have to go to those extremes and do those things. You know, we have to be careful. You know, men don't know how to interact with women because they haven't been taught right, because they haven't been socialized right, because the culture that we practice is a subculture that has been given to us by our enemy for us to what? To advance them.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about war, right, war is fought on many fronts, not just the physical one like Mama Gina was talking about. We talk about psychological warfare.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about chemical warfare.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We talk about spiritual warfare because many of our people are running around here praying to ideas that don't even pay homage to their likeness or their roots.
Okay.
That's war. You feel what I'm saying? Our people, I mean, have abandoned us spiritually, trying to find salvation in an enemy, right, that will never accept them.
Mm.
What do you think that does to you psychologically? Because at the end of the day, when you lay in the bed at night and you think about who you are, you have no sense of identity. You're lost. You know? But in your mind, because I got this car, I live in this house, I made this much money, I mean, at least I'm better than the people that's on the streets. We at war, especially when we don't consider what's going on with our people. You know, so we can go at this at any kind of angle, you know? But I always tell people this, right? What's more devastating, a physical blow or a psychological one?
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the psychological blows that this war has done to our people. Let's dig into that.
We can. I'm a partially start it off because the aspect that good brother that you touched on is one of the aspects that I wanted to bring up. And that particular aspect is that when you look at war, as we're defining war, it's a clash that ensues. And the fundamental premise of that clashing is ideological.
Mm-hmm.
And the ideas of a people are based on the people's culture. So fundamentally, a war is waged when you have two cultures, two ideas battling one another. I'm gonna give an example, and this one actually happened tonight. So we went up to our son's school, and you know the teacher. We had the parent teacher conference. They was going through, you know, all the grades and things like that. What's up, good brother Jawan? How you feeling, man?
What's up? How you doing?
Good, good. We talking about essentially are our people in a state of war right now. That is the discussion for tonight. So anyway, back to my example. Met with the teachers. We're going through, you know, his grades, things that he was doing. Then she brought up an aspect. One of the things that she said was, "Oh, there's no need to worry. There's no need to, you know, whatever. Be so hung up on a particular aspect because we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? That's the European ideology. Born in sin, you're not perfect. That is not an African ideology. So in that moment, I had that inclination. I had to step in and say something because at all moments, at all points in times, we got to represent and bring what we are about. We got to bring our way, our position, our culture, our ideas to the forefront.
That's right.
And we got to do it in such a way that our children see it and they understand it and they know that there's no wavering when it comes to what we do and what we're about. Right. So in that moment, I corrected her and I was looking at him as I was doing it to explain to him, like, listen, our way and our understanding, you are born perfect.
That's right.
Right. Perfection is the ability to have an ongoing process of growing, of developing, and refining oneself. Perfection is the ability to transcend, right? So that is the premise of human perfectibility of Africa. That concept does not exist in other people's culture.
That's right.
So when we run across these other people's culture, we got to be able to push back, right? We got to push back because, you know, if you look at any other particular cultural group, if you look at history, and you don't even have to really go to any other people's history outside of Africa, but what you will find is that anytime you have the encroachment of ideas, those other people coming in, there's always a push, right? It's a pushback, and there's parameters and boundaries that got to be set up to let you know, hey, in this particular area, we do this, we abide by this. And what happens, especially when you go through and you read our history, what you will find is the areas that have capitulated, they are much easily overrun as opposed to some of the areas that made that stance, right? And we could look at Kemet, we could look at a number of different areas. If you go through the book Destruction of Black Civilization, you'll find those different examples. So that's just an aspect that I wanted to introduce. And you know, I mean, even Brother Minister, as you was talking about the drugs, what they did in the 80s with the CIA, you know, that was it. That they did that in China. You go back and you look at how the Europeans came into China, that was their main tactic for war, to control China, to subdue those people. Mao Zedong had to rise up and say, you know what, we gotta push these drugs out. We got to make sure that our people understand who they are. So that's why even when the Chinese had their revolution, it was considered a cultural revolution, right? Same way with Vietnam. You know, you could run down the list, but I just want to point out that when you have those instances of a clashing of ideas and then all the subsequent things that come as a result of it, where we are today, we got to be able to rise up. We got to be able to stand up, and anything foreign, we got to push it out the way
immediately.
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is that basically it's important to understand that whenever people are being oppressed, that means you're at war. Because at the end of the day, when you have that struggle of somebody wanting to dominate you, either you be dominated or you resist the domination and you take back control over your life. And so that right there, that's a clash. That's a clash. And so at the end of the day, yes, we at war. There's no doubt about that. You know, one of the things that Baba Malcolm X talk about is that, you know, when an owner has a dog hunting for him, you know, they in the forest, the dog go chase the rabbit. And that dog is hungry. You know, that dog is starving. That dog catch the rabbit, and what he do? He bring it to his master. The dog is starving though, but he don't eat none of the rabbit. And all the master do is give the dog some bones. What did that dog get out of that situation? Nothing. If you look at us, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. We here working this system, driving this system, and what are we really getting? We feel like because we can have a house, we can lay in the bed, you know, we can have sex and things like that, we can go have fun. We think that's living. That's not living. That's a reduced aspect of existing. But at the end of the day, like I've been talking about, our culture has been attacked. We have been attacked, and we have been, like, you know, run down. So we're tired. We beat down. In a lot of ways, we just like, you know, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to make it. You know, you always hear people say, I'm just trying to stay out the way. What you trying to get out the way from? People know we at war in a certain sense. They just don't want to acknowledge it, because if they do, then they'll have to respond. I think Bob said something about that last time we was on, he said, Baba George Jackson realized that his father was a coward because he said it's not that his father didn't realize what was going on, but he said that if his father was to realize what was going on, he would then have to engage in the war, And so at the end of the day, I think it's important that our people in our minds, when we see these things going on, we have to be able to connect the pieces and just say they're not isolated events, because that's what can happen. We could say, oh, that's just police brutality. That's just gentrification. That's just drugs. These young brothers, they just need guidance. That's why they're killing in the street. No, you got to be able to see how they all work together. This is not separated from when they first came into Africa trying to attack. All these things are strategies and maneuvers to continue the domination. And so at the end of the day, in order to get out the situation, we have to engage in the war. Because if somebody beating you up, you don't win by just saying, okay. No, you got to get up and swing. So at the end of the day, I think it's important that we open our eyes and that we just don't lie to ourselves, because trying to avoid it doesn't make the situation better. It just makes it worse. And so I believe that in a lot of ways, our people know that we at war, but I just think that it's a deep sense of fear, and it's also a sense of what are we going to do with this war? Like, how far are we going to take it? What does that look like? Oh, I don't really want to hurt nobody. Like, these are the things that I think be crossing people's mind, because they know that if I step out and I jump in there and the police is beating up one of our people, what's going to happen to me? Like, when people see that, they know that's wrong, and they know that's an act of war. But it's like, am I willing to take it that far? So I just think that that's another aspect to it as well that we can just go into.
See, but that's also the reason why, like, breaking down the psychological aspect, we have been socialized to submit to a superior to inferior relationship that's going on in America. We don't even realize it, right? Because any other people, right, that have brutality brought upon their people, they stand up and they fight. We have been conditioned to believe, we have no rights. There's no equality, right? You know why? Because look at history. Every time that we have utilized American society to advances of people, they have changed laws, they have redirected situations, and they have put us in positions to lose. So we're in a game that is rigged to constantly attack us and tear us apart, and that's the issue, But I also, I see the question that the brother put down there. I know you put that up there, Minister Tommy.
No, I did not. But let's go ahead and read it out. And we can answer, because I think that builds on to where you getting at, and where you going. I like that.
Okay. So it says Hotep.
Mm-hmm.
Hotep. Once we understand all the aspects of violence and oppression African people experience in this society, how do we once and for all end it in this lifetime, right? And if
emphasis on this lifetime, huh?
In this lifetime. But I think that the reality, the struggle is protracted, right?
What does that mean?
That means, that at the end of the day, that the work that we do is an extension towards more work that has to be done that get us further and closer towards us having our sovereignty and having our liberation. And the work has to be done. Like, I'm looking at my son. My son is already in a greater position than I was when I was his age. And it's because of the work that I did on myself, being a part of an organization, being a part of a community that's doing the work, being able to surround him around mamas and babas that are living by the same cultural practices that teach him about the correct way of dealing with things, right? So we've already set him up to be greater than us. Everybody's children that are on here, right? We have all set our children up to be greater than we were when we were their age. So imagine when they are the age we are now, they are to be powerful than we are now. So that means when my son becomes 40 years old, he should be greater than the 40-year-old version I am. That's the work, When we look at history, right? Europeans, every time we try to come together to advance, they do something to appease and douse the revolutionary fire that is brewing in the people, right? They couldn't catch Haiti. And that's why Haiti, they couldn't catch Haiti. you know, and Haiti did what they did. And that was an example that feared them in America. In their minds, it's like, we can't allow these people to organize. We can't allow them to come together. Because when they do come together, you see what happens. So what they do is they give into a what? Emancipation Proclamation. They give into a what? Integration. They give into what? Give you a black figure as a leader or a totem of America. They give these little tokens and these little things to douse revolutionary fire, to appease the people, right? We got to realize what our enemy is. And the first statement that he says, understanding all the aspects of violence and oppression African people have experienced in this society, right? We have to understand that they have not changed. They have made more modern their techniques in ways of oppressing and exploiting our people. Every time they do anything that is looked in any view of being an add-on to us, we allow them in the back door to rob us blind. In this lifetime, that's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on doing everything that I need to do to prepare my son and the rest of the boys that I interact with to be able to take the torch even further. We got to do the work. We just got to do the work, you know, but we sit here and we allow ourselves to be distracted too much. I just seen so many brothers and sisters, right, start on this path just to be doused and let their fire die. What's the point of learning all this? Studying our culture and our history, wearing red, black, and green, you know, praying, pouring libation, if we're not preparing the next generation to be greater than us. But in order for that to happen, we got to be greater. I see mothers fail at being mothers towards their daughters because they don't want to work on their own personal indifferences. I see fathers fail at being fathers because they don't want to work on their own personal indifferences. I see men that don't want to mend the relationships with the mother of their children because they don't want to deal with their own personal indifferences. Oppression has ate us up from the inside. We are socially damaged, and we are social creatures by nature. Our culture thrives through our social and spiritual interactions. Until we restore that, right? Until we restore ourselves socially and spiritually, we're going to continue to keep doing the damage that our enemy wants us to do to our own people and ourselves. Will it stop? Will we end this in this lifetime? Yes. When we do away with everything that they have conditioned us with, and we have totally and fully embraced our way, our culture. That's when we bring it about.
That Bible's on fire. You know, when I hear my brother speaking, I hear 3 laws that we go by in urban philosophy: self-help, self-reliance, and self-preservation. Those are 3 urban philosophical laws, right? We got to do for self. We got to be able to be self-reliant. That means our economic, our historical experiences, our economic development, our ability to be able to study and learn our history and then apply it in a very practical way. Self-preservation. Don't put foreign culture, don't put anybody's culture before African culture, before Black culture, before our people. You know, it goes back to how what we believe when we talk about politics, doing what's in the best interest of the group. That's going to bring us further. Will we achieve African liberation, African sovereignty in this lifetime? I'm not sure, but the struggle must continue. The work must be done. And it starts with self-help, self-reliance, and self-preservation. When we elevate those laws, we will get further than we are today.
I want to actually hop in and say something as well. First and foremost, Hotep, my brother, I see you. You know, you come back on the live and you pop them questions out.
We appreciate
you. Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate the support, asking those questions, because it's needed. You know, somebody on here is finding value in what you're asking and has given us a chance and opportunity to reflect on you know, our studies, our not only our studies, but our lives. You know what I mean? What has been applicable, what we have actually done. And that's the essentially the purpose of this forum. So like my brothers and my mama here, my wife has stated, it's protracted. So the thing that we have to concern ourselves with is are we building those institutions? Are those institutions facilitating those systems that are necessary that's going to create that next generation revolutionary? I'm gonna give you a case in point, right? Because we mentioned China before, and I see you just brought up your question. So using kind of that as an example, Mao Zedong was the figurehead used for the Chinese Revolution. Mao Zedong has long since been gone, right? He died. But what is sustaining China, right? You had a series of different presidents, a series of different leaders that have come forth to oversee China. Even to this day, right? If you go turn on the news, they'll talk about different little subtle wars of what will war look like between China. They're talking about that today, right? They had their war during the 50s and that era of time, 50s and 60s period of time, but they're still talking about war with China today. So it's not a matter when we're talking about war, we're not looking at it from the perspective of getting ourselves under the yoke of Europeans for this moment of time. It has to be looked at, and at least I forgot what I think it was Marimba Ani that stated at least 7 generations, or something to that extent. It has to be looked at from that position. And you said once we understand all the aspects of violence and oppression, that's why studies is so important, because even how we perceive time is different. Right? Our perception and our understanding of time and having their conception of time, space, and reality being imposed upon us is an act of aggression, which also makes it an act of war. See, in the African reality, our time, our understanding of self, it is past, it is present, it is future, existing simultaneously at this point of what we call time, this juncture of now.
Living in the now. We say that in urban philosophy.
Right. So when we talk about our way and our understanding, we even got to be able to push that into our proper analysis of now, our proper analysis of time. If we continue to define anything as they have defined it, we're going to constantly find ourselves being a dependent people, constantly going back, trying to get some answers or try to figure some things out, right? So when we're talking about our ancestors being the first people in the world, what we're getting from that, what we're able to leverage from that is the understanding that with what it takes to build a people, to build a family, to build community, to build a nation, all of that has been laid out, right? All of that has already been laid out. Those systems that are in place, how we relate to one another, how we love one another, what we define as being human, what we define as being right, our sense of morality, our guidance, our judgment, all of that has already been laid down. So what we need to do is to peruse our history, our studies, and to be able to find out how do we take this and make it applicable to where we are at in this day and time. See, so that's how we end up waging a successful struggle today. You asked another question. It popped up and it disappeared. Let me read it real quickly. And anybody else, feel free to hop in. It said, we mentioned China and their revolution. That struggle lasted about 70 years. We are exactly 100 years from Marcus Garvey. Will it take another 100 years? Should we create our own society somewhere? Anybody want to hop in and answer that?
Can you say the question again? Because I can't see it on my screen.
Sure enough, it says, we mentioned China and their revolution. That struggle lasted about 70 years. We are exactly 100 years from Marcus Garvey. Will it take another 100 years? Should we create our own society somewhere?
I don't think it's going to take another 100 years. I just think we got to understand that oppression ain't our friend. You know, it's a lot of things that we suffer from, and it's just like we just don't understand that we suffer from, or we don't want to understand. It's like we just keep running away and running around oppression, and you can't run away and you can't run around oppression. You got to run straight through it. You understand what I'm saying? You got to face it. You got to look it right in the eyes, in the same way it do things to us, and look us right in our eyes and treat us the way that they treat us. We got to resist and look it right in his eyes back and do what we going to do. So it's not going to take 100 years. It can take 100 years if we keep letting this stuff happen. But it shouldn't take another 100. It shouldn't take another 100 years if we all on the same page, and we don't necessarily gotta believe in some of the same things, but we gotta know that oppression is against us. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we gotta know that. Even if you're sitting down in the church, we got to know that oppression is not for us. You understand what I'm saying? And once we understand that, then we can start to move. We can start to make things happen, but it shouldn't take another 100 years if we just start running from it.
Let's get it. What you say, Brother Dakare?
Yeah, I thought Mama T. Youngberg was about to speak. That's why I was waiting. But you good, Mama? All right. So yeah, I was about to say, that's why it's important for us to link that energy with what's really happening right now. Like, at the end of the day, we got the Race First movement, and that's what it's about. It's about organizing the revolutionary energy. Not to say that this is the only thing that's going to do it, but sometimes when stuff is right in front of you, it's best to use right in front of you instead of going all the way over there to go do something else when it's something right in front of you. And so at the end of the day, like, the Race First movement is designed to do that. It's designed to bring multiple organizations together with a common initiative of putting our people first in order for us to have our own empire. So yes, we are going to need our own society in Africa. It's not to say everybody's going to go over there, but we have to look at it as setting up a headquarters. Because in order for us to be a powerful people in the world, we have to have a headquarters. Because when our ancestors get hung from trees, or even when some people get hung from trees today, because somebody got hung from a tree about 2 years ago in DC and also in California, it's still happening. Like, there's no need for us to be going to their courts to get justice for that. No, they should be answering to us. One of y'all hung us. What is y'all gonna do? Because if you watch any of the mafia movies, when somebody order a hit, you gotta go talk to their boss. What happened? Because if you don't have no answer for this, we about to go to war. But what do? We go run into them and be like, please, can you please give us justice? I know y'all just killed us, but can you lock up that officer, please? It doesn't make any sense.
Wait, how to answer that question? How to answer that question?
The energy just came out, but I'm just saying.
Listen, I want to hear it again.
You asking please for somebody that don't got no mercy for you, and that's what we got to stop doing. And so when you're able to set up a headquarters, you're not at nobody else's mercy. People have to respect you then, because they like, oh, them black people over there, they nothing to play with. But when anybody can do anything they want to you, that's how they're going to treat you.
Right.
That's how they're going to treat you. And so at the end of the day, that's why we have to take organizing serious. With the Race First movement, we got a rally that we get ready to do this year. And after the rally, we got a convention. The convention is going to be in 2025. And the whole point of the convention is to make a national and international agenda. This agenda is going to be able to say, okay, cool, you in Mississippi, we in Baltimore, you in Alabama, you see what I'm saying? You in Georgia. When we come and we move with this Race First energy, this is what we're going to do in our locations. We're going to agree to this agenda, and we're going to do what we can where we at. Therefore, we moving united, and we're actually bringing about this reality. And so you have people who are in the farming industry. You got people who are carpenters. You got people who are working with, spiritual rituals and things of that nature. You got people who do hair. You got people who's dealing with engineering and things like that. You got mechanical engineers. You got computer technology. All these different fields of expertise that's needed to carry out a nation and build an empire. You have these different forces coming together at this one convention. And that's what it's all about. And so at the end of the day, these things are actually still happening as we speak. And this is why it's important to just not get so caught up in the media, because a lot of stuff is happening in the shadows. Like in Africa, there's a lot of African countries that's disassociating with the United Nations, that's disassociating with the so-called Peace Corps from the United States. They're like, y'all been here for 10 years. What are y'all doing? Why are y'all random white people over here talking about y'all want to help us? Y'all not doing nothing. Leave. A lot of them are starting to do that. And so we got to understand that a lot of stuff is already happening, and at the same time, there's actual tangible things that people could participate in the real time. Like I said, we got this convention going on, and we do stuff all the time. We already talked about how we got the manhood program for the boys. Mama Gina's working with the woman. At the end of the day, plenty of us have businesses. I got a construction business. My construction business is desired to hire Black people. That's why I went into the industry, because I want to make sure that my people is not going on the streets because we feel like we don't got no other way to make money. And so at the end of the day, it's real stuff that's happening. It's just about who do we know, what are we willing to learn, how much are we willing to discipline ourselves, and at the end of the day, are we really willing to be able to step away from this system? Because if we really willing to be real with ourselves, some of us, we just get pleasure from participating in this system. But we gotta get off that nipple. It's time to walk around and grow up. We can't just be latching on to this system and just be like, yeah, I wanna go do my own thing. But in the shadows, you want to keep sucking on the nipple. I think we just gotta leave it alone.
That's a good point.
Good point. Good point. Good point.
Because a lot of times what happens is, and I'm speaking from, and I think many of my comrades on here are speaking from experience when it comes to this particular work. People say they want freedom, they want sovereignty, they want accountability, they want organization. But when it comes to the actual challenge, when they're going through something and they actually feel the intensity of the struggle, they bail out. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. How many years have we seen people come around, good hearts, got some type of intellect with them, they got potential, they can be groomed in in a number of areas. They just got to be, they got to be polished to be that diamond. But when we start to apply that friction and that pressure to polish that diamond, then they bail out, or something happens, and instead of pouring in, they bail out. That's an aspect that we got to be able to look in the mirror and have that honest conversation. We PLM had it. We had it at least twice. It happened. 2 different little events, discrepancies, big exodus. People who stayed are the people who wanted to pour in more. The people who stayed, they got a chance to not only pour in more, but they began to transcend and they begin to elevate themselves because they went through hard times. They went through the pressure. Yeah, which is the process. They went through that, and as a result of staying around and becoming more engaged, they become more refined in their ability to execute the revolution. They became more capable of sustaining themselves in the war. So I think that's the point, that it cannot be overlooked. Bob is one of the people who always talks about discipline. So when we're talking about what is needed for our ability to be successful in waging a successful counter struggle, we got to be able to look at discipline. And I think, I don't know, I see Brother Dakare's name mentioned. Somebody want to read that for the brother?
Say right on, brother.
Say right on, Brother Dakare. There has to be a national collective agenda with a vision of exactly what liberation looks like. What just have not had that yet since Garvey.
Say that, and I will.
You was on mute. Go ahead.
I believe so. I agree with the brother, to an extent, but I also want to elevate the work that is being done, because there's several community organizations that's doing this work right on the ground. When we talk about Black socialization, even this forum, even this space, being able to educate our minds, being able to understand that we got to evolve. We got to start thinking collectively. We got to start thinking, as the brother Dakari is saying, about the race first movement, and being able to say, we're going to bring these people together. And this isn't nothing new. If you study history, you go back to the 1800s, you will see, yeah, we organized, we had conferences, we came together to establish that collective ashe, to establish that collective understanding, to move us closer to nationhood. We're doing it. We gotta big up ourselves right now, because if we get into an attitude where we begin to think that we're not doing the work, we're gonna set ourselves up for failure. We're gonna set ourselves up to go on this rat race, when in actuality we are progressing, we are pushing our people forward. Do we need more bodies? Yes. There's a proverb, Mama Tiombe like to say, more hands makes light work. Am I saying it right? We need that. Yeah, we need that. We need our people to come together. We need ideological clarity where we're all thinking and behaving the same way. But we got to start somewhere. We got to start with the mind, with the knowledge. We got to be able to say, hey, what am I pouring into you? What book are you reading, sis? What book are you reading, brother? What kind of discourse can we have so that we can get on the same page? We can't create an agenda when we don't share the same ideological clarity. We got to be on point with that mentally and go from there. So I love what Baba's doing with the Race First movement. I love what we are doing with the Race First movement, because that is a start, that is a resurgence of a start, if I'm even clearer. Let's get into it. I know we got a few minutes left. Any other questions? We got some folks joining in the chat. We appreciate y'all joining us tonight. Again, like and subscribe, share this live. We are here every first and third Thursday of the month, and we're so glad you're joining us tonight. So we got about 10 to 12 minutes left, and we want to hear from you all. What you want to say, Brother Minister?
Yes. I also wanted to chime in on what y'all were talking about. I think one of the biggest things that we struggle with is the commitment aspect. We'll look at an organization and be a supporter from the sidelines, but we don't want to commit and dig into the organization and add into the organization, because we still struggle with so many trust issues. It's like we're waiting to see the other shoe drop. And my thing is this, right? When I was 17, 18, came across PLM, and I committed myself. I've been committed ever since. 40 years old, At the end of the day, right, I know that by me being here, I add to. By being a supporter, right, I can only do so much. But actually being a member, I can actually add in and help to define and advance it. But the problem is I see so many of our people right on the fence because they don't want to commit. I see them struggle. They commit in relationships with family. They struggle with commitment in relationships with their counterpart, being a compliment. They struggle with commitment in so many different areas, right? And the reason why is because we say we value Black life and we value doing the work, but you don't value it until you actually marry it. When you become engaged with it and you marry it, like me and my wife, this is my wife, we're married, but I'm also married to PLM. I'm married to this organization. I'm married to this work. And that's what we have to do. We have to create that level of commitment. We got so many individuals, right, out here that are uprooted plants that have not committed to being rooted in something, doing the work. It's easy for us, to be the ones raising our hands and asking questions. It's easy for us to be the ones, just showing up, getting our little vegan food, showing up, getting, partaking and buying a t-shirt or something like that. It's easy for that, right? But to say, I'm going to be committed to this, I'm going to show up to meetings, I'm going to study, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to share and be vulnerable with my brothers and sisters that we're growing into this organization and doing this work with. That takes a commitment, and people aren't doing that type of work. You look good on the outside, you shiny, but on the inside, it's all over the place. The only way we're going to actually be able to heal as a people, look at every revolution, right? It was a unified front. It was people coming together, committing to each other, right? And moving as one, as a unified force. You can't do that as just a supporter. You got to do that as a committed person. Because at the end of the day, a Baba Imhotep becomes somebody that is an anomaly. Oh, he a blue moon. A Marcus Garvey becomes somebody, oh, he's a blue moon. A Malcolm X becomes a blue moon. These people become blue moons. Because they're, you're looking around like, where are they at? Where are they at? They're there, but the reality is when you commit into an organization or you commit into the group or the community that you're a part of, you become a part of it. You become a living, moving part of it. That's the greatest work that you can do. We have to commit. Stop sitting around waiting to get off the couch. Get in the game. Ashe.
Real quick, because I want to talk about this marriage that we was talking about, right? And talk about the commitment, because that requires transformation. So sometimes people got these quote unquote conscious folks who like to hop from place to place, right? They don't want to be rooted in any one place, because if you stay too long, at some point your mess is going to get found out. And it prevents you from doing the transformative work within that you really need to do, because now you have to be held to a standard. When you're saying that you're going to commit to something, all that stuff that you normally do, like that can't fly. And a lot of times people, they don't want to get checked and called out on their stuff, but that's what happens when you find yourself rooted in something. And if we're really going to have that collectivism that's needed to really achieve a Bibi Fahodi, achieve African sovereignty, then that's something that we have to get used to doing. That's something that we can commit to this job that's no good, that we can't stand, that we complain about, but we can't commit to our liberation. Right. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense at all. You go out there and you pour at least 40 hours into a place where they could care less if you drop dead tomorrow, because they're just going to replace you by the next working day. But you can't pour that same amount of energy and effort and commitment into your liberation, into your freedom. Right. Come on now. And so you got to learn how to, you might not even be ready to marry, right? To marry the revolution right now. At least date it a little. Some of us, we don't even want to date it. Right. Some of us, we just out here want to be some, you know what I mean? Like, just a couple, a little dab, just some dabblers. We just revolutionary dabblers. You can't do that. But then be the first ones complaining about what's not occurring. You haven't rooted yourself in anything to even be a productive member of any type of African society or African revolution. So that's all I wanted to add. I felt like, that was a good point that you raised. I just want to expand on that marriage piece.
We married, y'all.
We married, y'all.
And listen.
Oh, go ahead.
Off on that. Marriage, and especially talking about a relationship, it got to be rooted in realism. It got to be rooted in what is real, practical. Relationships can fall when a person in the relationship becomes too idealistic, trying to think of, oh, I want a relationship that's like, we want to go on dates every weekend. I want to get what? I want to fly first class. All the little different things that we get caught up in, all the little quote unquote Cinderella stories and all these different things that we be seeing on TV. That's just not realistic. In the same way that a relationship fails if a person is wrapped up in their idealism, is the same way a person falters when it comes to being engaged in this particular type of struggle. This struggle got to be from the vantage point and from the viewpoint of realism. It got to be.
The declarations of my eye allow me to distinguish the real from the unreal. We gotta sit at the seat of that,
And so when it comes to a lot of those movements, like, granted, I don't want to come off haughty or take away anything from any of our greats. But what I will say is this: where we are at today, we're dealing with conditions that our dear ancestor Garvey, he didn't have to deal with. So that's going to take a different type of thinking. That's going to take a different type of creativity. That's going to be able to put you on your own path in your own particular lane. So we got to be able to link up with other great minds who are aware of what's going on, and to be able to execute something that's based in realism, like being on a live at almost 10 o'clock with 2 under 2. This is real over here.
It's real.
Exactly.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have reminded me, Mama Quetta, when you were saying that part about, we do more for this system than we do for ourselves as like Black people, because that's what I was getting at when I was talking about, when Baba Malcolm X said the hunting dog catches the rabbit for their master and they're starving. Because that's basically what's happening. It's like so many Black talent goes to Google. So much Black talent wants to go to Silicon Valley. So much Black talent wants to go to all these big name companies, all these fancy banks and stuff like that. None of them names even come to my mind, Black Wall Street, all these different things. And it's like our energy is being drained by the very thing that's punishing us. We already got to go get gas. Some things are unavoidable. We already got to pay taxes. We know them tax dollars go to these police that's assassinating us. It's like some stuff we can't get around, but it's like we got to infiltrate the system. We can't just be comfortable. We got to always think strategic. And that's how we're going to win this war, because we already understand that everybody's not ready to jump out the system 100%. Everybody's not ready to jump into an organization. Like, we understand everything is degrees and phases, but starting where you at, you got to be able to see what can you do for your people. That got to always be on your mind. So the last thing, I just wanted to talk about is just infiltrating the system, because that's always how white people have been able to advance on us, is by infiltration. And it's not that they invented that. That's just a war tactic. If you want to weaken somebody, you separate them, and you also, hide and you deceive. One of the jobs that I was working at, before I knew how to do cabinets, it got to the point where I told them, I was like, I've been doing this base a long time. I already know how to do that, and I know we finished with that. Can I learn how to do cabinets? The white dude said, "Why, you want to learn how to do cabinets so you go open up your own business?" I told him no. But that's exactly why I asked him. Yes, I'm trying to open my own business. I got my own business. Matter of fact, yes, I'm learning this so I can go do my thing. But when I tell you, yeah, I'm gonna lie to you straight up. I said it quickly. Oh, you trying to steal knowledge from me? Oh no, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to I just love learning. That's what I told him. I just love learning. So when we in these places, we gotta infiltrate. We gotta get the knowledge so that we could build our own society, and that has to be the larger mission, because that's what Baba Marcus Garvey was working for. He knew that we needed our own empire, and so that has to be in the back of our minds. So we always hear African sovereignty. We gotta think us having our own empire, Africa being united, Black people controlling, not saying that all Black people is going to go over there all at once, because that's not realistic either. But we got to set up that foundation so that wherever we at in the world, we can be supported by that. And so, I just think that we just got to move more strategic and be more intentional about getting out of our situations. And so, you know, everything my comrades were saying tonight, I agree with. And I just wanted to add that last part about like infiltrating when we in these seats. We can't be there just think about 401k, but we gotta really be thinking about what can you learn to be able to help your people get our own empire. I think that's important.
Shay, I think that's an excellent point to end on tonight. We appreciate all of you all for joining us again. Like, subscribe, share within your networks, and we will see you again in 1 week's time. With that, I say a beautiful Houdier.